Welcome, everybody, to this very special romantic episode of Flicker with Jack and Scott. I am your co host, Jack Handley, film critic, cinema programmer, and beloved cinephile, here with my extraordinary partner in crime, my life partner in cinema, one Scott Agner. How are you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. What a perfect opportunity to share the screen with you on this special event.
And for those listening, know that my partner Scott is also a film critic, an academic, a film programmer, and of course, also a beloved cinephile as well. So we are here. Our set, if you'll notice, Scott, I kind of turned my lights a bit low, lit a candle for this episode. Based on an idea you had, could you tell our viewing audience what this episode is going to be about and why you selected it?
Yeah, I thought in honor of Valentine's Day, or as some people better know it, my birthday.
That's all I know it.
That we thought it would be extremely fun to offer up some Valentine's Day suggestions to all of you viewers in the form of offering up some of our favorite romantic comedies, a genre that we had a ton of fun sort of discussing and thinking about and navigating how we consider films to fit into that genre. So we're going to offer up some of our personal favorite romantic comedies for you for your Valentine's Day viewing pleasure.
And let you know where you could stream or rent them so that you could spend the night. This will be airing live on Valentine's Day, and you knowing that you'll also be out there in the dark, hopefully watching some of these films.
Get your chocolates, get your champagne.
In robes like us, how we always intended to do this podcast.
That's right.
Well, Scott, let's begin, though, by saying, like, there's a criteria, right? How did you narrow down your list? Because there's some contention. There are films that I absolutely love that I think are devastatingly romantic, and films that are extraordinarily comedic that I love, that for me I had a hard time reconciling if they fall into the tropes of what some traditionally would refer to as a romantic comedy. So for instance, like two of mine that I really wanted to talk about of my dear favorites are of course Rushmore, which I vacillated back and forth, had many a debate. And I know you differ with me on this, and you thought I should have gone for it.
I totally think you should have gone for it.
But honestly, I think of that much more in terms of landing in the category of like a true coming-of-age story. So I kind of have it nested in there, but I think it's certainly both romantic and comedic, and devastatingly so. I also have a film like Better Off Dead that I just absolutely adore, that is comedic and in the best ways. And ultimately, this hilarious romance with all its 80s tropes. But how did you come across with your criteria? How did you narrow down your selections?
No, I think that was to me what was part of the fun of trying to think of these films and trying to navigate sort of, what we might traditionally define as a romantic comedy, but also those films that kind of toe that line a little bit in a variety of different ways. I also couldn't help but ignore the fact that I was constantly thinking about our buddy Willie Shakespeare with Much Ado About Nothing, and how that kind of epitomizes to me like everything that I would want to find in a romantic comedy. So as I'm sort of navigating these, I was really just playing off of this idea, like, is there romance to be found in that, in whatever form I thought it might exist? And does it make me laugh? And I really just kind of personally held it to those two criteria. And so... I think we've got some interesting choices.
All right. Well, I say let's dive into it. Let's get on. We've narrowed it down to 3 apiece. Yeah. And if you'd like, we can just kind of tag team our choices. Scott, what is your first?
That's great. I'll go first. Yeah, I could do first. And I think first up on my list, I'll start with one that maybe is a little bit more middle ground, I think, by definition, but something that also just recently this month, had its moment in the sun, which is a favorite of mine. I went with Groundhog Day, Harold Ramis Groundhog Day, Bill Murray, Andy McDowell, streaming for you on AMC Plus. I absolutely adore this film. It's one of my all-time favorites. It does make me laugh. It does. Actually, interestingly, I feel like every time I watch this film, I almost forget that there's like this romance that takes place in it. Because I'm just like, I just love how comedic everything about it is. And then as it progresses, right, you get you get this hints of romance and maybe even some creepy romance going on there. But I also love how it ends. I love how it ends in a non-traditional romantic comedy way, where with just this change of heart and this change of character on Bill Murray's part, where it's not necessarily like, oh, he wins the girl, but it's like, no, I'm just a different human being, and I hope people like me. So I really love that kind of slightly different ending to it also.
Oh, I agree. That is a marvelous choice. And yeah, I kind of agree with you. In a sense, it also just transcends just that traditional trope as well into just being this film about life and the human condition, which is also pretty fucking romantic, right?
And of course, time loops, right? Who can ignore the awesomeness of time loops, right?
And Bill Murray. Yes, I'm with you. Fantastic choice, my friend. All right. So I'm coming out of the gate swinging hard on this one, Scott. And I will fight bare-chested on the Hill to defend this choice, albeit in soft Christmas snow of a fight, to stand here and defend my absolute unabashed love for Bridget Jones's Diary.
Yes.
Let me make my case here about why, Scott, on this probably a non-traditional choice for me, but why I love it so much. Number one, of course, you have this marvelous British novel by the great Helen Fielding, of course. So you start off, and that itself is a modern take on Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, of course. So amazing source material, an amazing modern adaptation. Then we're going to do the film adaptation. So who do you bring in? You bring in Fielding, and you bring in Richard Curtis, who's basically writes he's the king of British romantic comedy. And then for good measure of meta-ness, you bring in the writer of 1995's Pride and Prejudice for the BBC, which everyone who knows their Pride and Prejudice knows is the classic. That's the Rosetta Stone of Pride and Prejudice. And who anchored that performance, I'd ask you, Scott, but the great Colin Firth. Apologies to Succession Tom. I know you were also Mr. Darcy, but nowhere near as great as Colin Firth. So the sheer meta-ness of making this and then casting Colin Firth as Mark Darcy, the love interest, is just the amazing amalgam of coolness and cleverness and wit. Talk about this great cast you have. Let me just also quickly say this. If the British can send over one of their actresses to steal the juiciest role of a great American Southern literary heroine, then with Scarlett O'Hara, then I think it is only fair that we send one of our Southerners over to steal this most iconic British role that every female actress in Britain wanted, with the great Renee Zellweger. You pair it with Hugh Grant to form the love triangle. And again, it's just a real feat of casting here. The entire supporting cast is a who's who of everyone who appears in all the great British comedies and romantic comedies, even with a special appearance by Salman Rushdie himself showing up in it. Again, it's just a lovely homage for it. And the last bit I'll say about this, Scott, is for me as a criteria, not only is it just brilliant, it's funny, it's witty, it has a marvelous soundtrack, hits all the right beats, it has great source material. But for me, a criteria has to be, as a viewer, I feel that like their on-screen counterparts, I kind of, for it to be great, a great romantic comedy, I have to also kind of fall in love with the protagonist as well. Like I have to get it and just be charmed and fall in love myself. And I will proffer that it is impossible to watch the great Renee Zellweger drunk at her Christmas party with tinsel earpieces and her dangling cigarette, drunkenly singing off key and not fall absolutely smashingly in love with her. It is charming. It is beautiful. And I will watch this. This is one of those that I'll watch every time it pops on television. Stop what I'm doing. I love Bridget Jones's Diary.
Don't feel bad about it, right? Great choice. I think I 100% agree. Phenomenal choice. I know my wife would be fully on board with that choice.
Yes,
also.
all right, good,
right?
Good
That's right. Great choice. All right, so moving on, I'll throw out another one here, and we're going to take a slightly different turn here, and I know you've got something along the same lines of taking a little bit of a different turn on your list as well. So I'm going to take a turn a little bit more towards the indie, a little bit more towards the auteur, a little bit less mainstream, and I am going to present my second choice to you, which is Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love. Adam Sandler and Emily Watson turning in phenomenal performances. This is that one, right, that we credit with letting Adam Sandler break into this dramatic category of acting, still allowing him to shine with some of that comedic talent. I absolutely love this film. The soundtrack is phenomenal. One of my favorite kind of absurdist soundtracks that exists. Been described as an absurdist romantic comedy drama, dealing with, and I quote, the bizarreness of love, and also a comedy of discomfort, rage, and sweetness. And what better way to give to you this pleasure film of mine? Love this film, this absurdist take on a romantic comedy, but hits all the right notes for me. One of those films that I could watch endlessly.
Oh, fantastic choice. And, you know, it's going to be thematically one we'll continue here. Anyone that knows us and watches us by now should know that no matter the genre, we're going to find an absurdist, surrealist, and dark take on it. So fantastic choice. Love that film. I'm so happy you picked that. I'm going to kind of jump backward in time a little bit over here for this one. I have a classic romantic comedy. Some might term it a screwball comedy, but I also think it is devastatingly charming and romantic, and that is 1941, The Lady Eve by the great Preston Sturges. And this, you know, written and directed by Preston Sturges, and he had this run of astonishingly quirky and funny kind of screwball farce comedies all throughout the 40s, but I contend that this may be his absolute best one, following a con artist, a card shark played by the great Barbara Stanwyck, taking on Fonda, bumbling Fonda in one of his better roles too, that I just find adorable. What I love about this too, Scott, is that it is a wonderful throwback to an appreciation of the golden age of Hollywood for what was then that fast talking, witty, that witty banter of like the traditional comedic farce. But Sturges here upends it with the gender dynamics so that Barbara Stanwyck's character is firmly in control in the driver's seat the entire time. So it's a lovely little gender swap of a take on the farce. For people out there that be like, I never really got this Barbara Stanwyck thing, go watch this movie. You will instantly fall head over heels in love with her.
Totally.
The way she plays her cards literally and metaphorically will just knock you out. It was actually great because this is one of the first films I saw in the University of Florida, long back in the day when I first started attending film class. And this was one of the ones shown, and I just fell in love with it then, and I always try to revisit it. So
that's awesome.
It's out there, guys. Go check it out. I forgot to mention that it is available right now on Canopy, which is a great resource for anybody that has
amazing
a library card to use that. And go out there and find this film. It is lovely and still holds up. It is witty and sharp and so much fun.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you took a little bit of a dive back. There were many films that were kind of on my verge of, looking towards some of these older films and saying like, ooh, can I squeeze them in? Can I find a way to sort of make these work on my list?
Right?
So
there's so many to choose from.
Yeah, I'm really glad you took that step back and give us something a little bit different with that. That's a great choice. Great choice. Oh, I forgot to mention also Punch Drunk Love streaming on Pluto TV. So I mentioned Groundhog Day on AMC Plus. We got Punch Drunk Love on Pluto TV.
Well, and another nod to Pluto, Bridget Jones's Diary is also on Pluto and Paramount Plus. We have to tell the folks where to watch. So yes,
there you go.
Excellent.
So
good on you, Pluto.
I will move on to my third choice now. And the third choice here, we had a little bit of conversation about this, but we also felt that it just could not be ignored. I think this film is likely to be on anybody's romantic comedy favorite list. It is a personal favorite of mine. I absolutely adore this film. And for me, this is one of those films that I would sit down and watch regardless of where I turn it on, regardless of what point in the story we are. I will happily sit down and enjoy this film, one that I'm sure you've all seen and one that I'm sure you all love, and that is the great Nora Ephron, Rob Reiner duo of When Harry Met Sally, a film that I think is almost perfect in its completion of a narrative. There are very few films that I hand out that award to, and this is one that to me I think is pretty darn close, if not all the way there, for a perfect film. What I love about it so much is you get everything you need to know about who these people are and what their life will be like. There is no need for a sequel. There's no need for us to look back and say, hey, give us something 40 years later. Let us know what these people are up to. We know every single thing we need to know about who they are and what their life will be like. And I absolutely adore it. Of course, you've got Billy Crystal, right? Amazing Billy Crystal.
Always great.
Of course, you've got Meg Ryan in one of what I would contend is one of her better and more charming roles. Absolutely love When Harry Met Sally, streaming on Tubi.
Marvelous joy. Oh my God. How can you top that? You really can't. It's the best. It's the one that I hope everyone watches. Let me proffer for some of our viewers that are like, all right, Jack and Scott, I hear you. I know that's the pillar. What if I'm a bit down on love? What if this year is maybe not my year for trying to find that solace, but I still want some hope, but perhaps a deconstruction of love in the form of a dark, surrealist, absurdist take on that dreaded emotion. And I then offer you my favorite Lanthimos film, The Lobster. From 2015. We both gush about this great auteur that we love so much. And even when I try to rank the films, I have to say that's always hard, right? It's a drinking game you and I have done many times at an after party, trying to rank how they would fall. And I think although my head tells me Killing of a Sacred Deer maybe is best, my heart still comes back to The Lobster. And there's a reason, because I think ultimately when you're not expecting it, to me, it is so goddamn romantic in the way it approaches the idea of love in a modern context, but subverts it in every possible way. Your leads are engaging. The storyline is dark and messed up and funny and also tragic and sublime and transcendent, just like love is. It has that wonderful, great, ambiguous ending, which we won't touch on to spoil here. I know a lot of people out there, Scott, will contend that it really leaves the audience to decide between two possibilities. I contend, and I think we've discussed this many times before, that there are three possibilities. And the one that I think is quite obvious of what happens at the end, I just find so beautiful and romantic and devastating. It crushes me with both hope and joy and sadness every single time, which is the meaning of love after all. And I would say too, is there a better on-screen representation of the vulnerability of putting yourself out there in the name of love than that final scene leaves you with? That's gold. So absolutely adore The Lobster. I urge you to go out and watch that. Go find that partner, and you don't have much time, or else you'll be changed into an animal, Scott, if you don't find them. So that's my final pick.
As anybody who knows us knows, we are huge fans of Yorgos Lanthimos. This is a phenomenal choice. Absolutely amazing film. We've discussed this film at length. We've been a part of the talkbacks. We've been a part of the conversations. Yes. We have even tried to figure out which animals we would turn into. So we've been there. We've thought about it tons. We've analyzed it tons. And
we've gone too far down the rabbit hole. We've gone
too far. That's right. And I would say that if you have watched When Harry Met Sally, which many of you had, this would also be the one that I would direct you to. I would say ignore my other ones. Go watch The Lobster right now if you haven't watched it. I think it's a phenomenal choice. I think it encapsulates so many interesting takes on what we're discussing here. So I think that is an absolutely great choice.
Yeah, it's just marvelous. And I think right now, I was just looking for my notes, it is streaming right now on Max and also on Canopy. So
perfect. There you
Canopy.
Go. There you
Get
go.
out there and see that. So Scott, as we wrap up here, I know you had some very close also rans on there. Right. Hit me with those.
That's right. So I couldn't justify not at least mentioning these. And so I'm going to take a little detour here and throw out something that is just something I sort of have this soft spot for, and that is the teen romantic comedy genre. Yes. And I've got three that I'm going to throw out there, three films that fit perfectly into sort of when I experience them. It's those kinds of films, right? Like it's so much connected to what's going on at your life when you experience those films. You know, certain films will speak to you at those moments and you're like, there's nothing that comes even close to getting me the way it gets me, right? And so I've got three teen romantic comedies that I just could not have this conversation without throwing these out. These are three of my guilty pleasure teen romantic comedies. We've got Can't Hardly Wait. We've got Empire Records streaming on Hulu. And, of course, another throwback to our good buddy William Shakespeare, 10 Things I Hate About You. Couldn't ignore
marvelous choices all. Oh my goodness, these are brilliant. I love what you brought. I love this category. Thank you for thinking up this idea for this episode. We have now basically, I think by my count, given about 11 to 14 different possibilities out there. So assuredly, you can find one of those that you can enjoy by yourself, love yourself, or with your significant other on this day. And so we hope that you will check that out. And we hope you'll join us for our next episode. If you like what you've seen, if you like spending these evenings with us, then please be sure to like and subscribe, to follow our channel here on YouTube. We have a lot more things. And if you like to hear us more in depth, we also have a side podcast called Blind Spotting, a film discovery podcast, where we just also experienced an astonishing film that changed our lives forever. And I would talk about it for hours if we could on our next episode that's dropping soon. So I urge you to check that out. So thank you all for
give us the like, give us the follow, and leave us some comments too. Let us know what your favorite romantic comedies are. We always are interested.
What did we leave out? What should we be shamed for not talking about? Right. Please tell us below. Have a fantastic night. And buddy, even though I want to be doing this with you forever, should something ever come between us and we have to break up, please know that I will never, ever want that wagon wheel coffee table. Just know. Brother, I love you, man.
All right, love you too.
I'm glad we're spending Valentine's together. Have a good one, everybody.
Day, buddy.
Take care.